You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. Conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their missions through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media.
Jenny, you've been working in the ad agency space for 15 or so years?
That's right.
Yeah. And have you ever thought about going, quote unquote, client side? Have you ever thought about working in a marketing department versus an ad agency?
I think everyone from the agency side at some point in their career thinks, I wonder what it'd be like to just have one client to focus on.
Well, I got good news for you. Today is your lucky day. Our topic is in-housing your media buying and planning for nonprofit attractions. You have just been hired as the marketing director, the CMO at the attraction of your dream. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. And you've been tasked with bringing some of the media buying and planning functions in-house. So let's walk this through. What are you doing day one?
Yeah. So day one, I think coming from the agency world, I think of what would I do onboarding a new client day one. So if I'm coming in-house on client side, I'm going to think of kind of like a very similar setup, right? So day one is really defining my business objectives. And for a nonprofit attraction who's spending money in advertising, right? I'm not going to take this job if they're not spending any money in media and advertising. But for that type of client, their focus really is, their main focus is going to be visitation, right? We need people to come into the park and pay money so that we can support all of our other initiatives. So I'm getting my hands on visitation data, and I'm using that to set a report card for performance for my team. Again, coming from the agency side, everything is performance-based. We think all day. Obviously, the day-to-day is so important in managing our clients' expectations and helping them out and supporting them. But at the end of the day, we know our contract is not being renewed if we can't meet certain performance objectives. So if I'm transitioning into this, marketing lead or, advertising lead for a nonprofit attraction, tasked with bringing the media in-house, I've got to think through performance. And now it's even more important because the performance is on me, right? I can't blame my agency for no performance. It's on me if I'm going to take this all in-house, or the team that I'm hiring if I'm going to bring this in-house.
So you're talking about like ticketing systems, like getting visitation data?
Right. So if, am I working with an Acme or some other type of ticketing software where I can pull that data out, pull that visitation data out and actually see it. And I think this is kind of sounds like so duh, like, of course, doesn't everyone have access to the visitation data? And I think you'd be surprised at how many would say, well, we have it, but we have to stitch it together and it goes to a different department. So I only see it like once a month, or if I ask for it. And I think that from a marketing, we have to be able to justify that what we're doing is working. And yeah, we can say, look at how many followers we increased, and look how many people liked our content, and look how many clicks we drove to the website. But at the end of the day, how is marketing supporting driving visitation? And I'm tasked with that now, taking this role, or if I take this type of role. So yeah, I'm figuring out, how do I get this, automated? How am I seeing this on, a daily, weekly cadence, whatever it is, what my goals are for that month, that event. I mean, that's so, so important. And that's what, our agencies ask from us all the time. Our agencies are asking of these clients all the time. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. But my role, if I came into this role as that marketing director, that would be the number one thing I would task myself with figuring out so that I can drive better performance overall.
And I can hear some of our audience thinking, oh my gosh, we've worked with attractions that have 2, 3, 4 different ticketing systems, point of sale systems, walk-ups are counted differently than online ticket sales. This isn't happening with a snap of the fingers for some attractions.
Right. Some of it may be as simple as saying, I just need to figure out how to get an automated report. And some of it may be a total overhaul. And, so that's going to be my priority kind of day one.
So step one is ultimately tying together visitation to paid media.
Right. My total marketing efforts, even beyond just media, but yeah.
Got it. Okay. Step two.
So step two is ownership. And what I mean by ownership is paying my media invoices and signing my insertion orders. So if you're working with an agency partner, they're likely doing all of this for you. that's fine if we want to keep everything outsourced. But if we're starting to look at in-housing a team, this is the first piece that I would bring over. And really that's to get our hands around knowing and understanding where everything's going. I mean, I'm already probably doing some type of reconciliation with my agency partner, or, did we spend what we said we were going to spend in TV and radio and digital? So I'm just taking it more of that internally. But more importantly, I'm actually paying the invoice to the media vendor themselves.
Oh, I can hear the accounting teams already going, oh my gosh.
Right. It's a lot of invoices to process. I mean, obviously the less money really, if you spend less money, this should be something that you're absolutely doing because you don't have as many invoices to process. So ideally, you can take that on. You're spending $5 million. Maybe you have a ton of invoices to process. Like, is your accounting team set up for that? Or is that something that you need to look at, supporting? But I think this is something that most attractions could make possible internally. Yeah,
I'm thinking there's some attractions out there like, hey, I've been working with WXYZ, the ABC local TV affiliate here for 20 years, and we've got a great relationship, and they just send me the invoices directly. But you're talking about everything. Right.
So that's our billboards, our TV and radio, our digital platforms. So, our Google Ads account, our Facebook and Instagram accounts, TikTok, right? Chances are we probably already have a business manager, account with each of these that we're running like our organic content through. So we want our paid content going through that as well. And we want to switch that kind of ownership, that bill pay from the agency to us as the advertiser.
Okay. So how and why? Like, let's go with Google Ads. Like, how would you do that? How would you take that away from your agency?
Well, the first step is to tell your agency what you're doing and why, because they're going to be probably a little hesitant when they hear someone say like, hey, we want to, when they hear a client say, we want to own this, we want to transition this. Their first thought is they're going to fire us. And at the end of the day, we're not taking this step, or I'm not recommending that you take this step to fire your agency. I'm recommending you take this step to just have greater transparency and know, more about kind of behind the scenes what's going on. And so you need to let your agency partners know this. The pushback a lot of times can come from the fact that they're thinking, well, we set all the strategy up and we didn't charge you for the strategy, right? We're just charging you an ongoing management fee, but now we're just giving you the entire hierarchy and setup.
Right. Like there's a lot of effort, strategic thinking, intellectual property, if you will, that goes into setting up some more sophisticated paid search campaigns. And you're just asking the agency to hand it all over?
Yeah. And I think 50-50 on how nice they're going to play. I think this is where you need to have a good relationship with your agency to reinforce, I'm not taking it away. We're moving all of our, invoice payment internally. One of those reasons could be, like you just want to ensure like every invoice is paid on time, right? Your agency is not always paying all your invoices on time on your behalf. So it's just, we want to reduce one of the steps in, invoice payments. Like this is not uncommon. Like a lot of client agency relationships are set up this way. I think it's when it comes to the, paying those platforms directly, those digital platforms like Google Ads and Facebook, where your agency partner can just get a little concerned over what you're doing. So ensure them, hey, we're still going to work with you. We have 6 months left on our contract. There's no change to any of that. You guys are great strategic partners. We want you to manage this, but we want to own payment for everything. We no longer want you to be our bank. That's not fair to you. We think we can process these invoices faster. Sometimes your agencies might be doing reconciliation on a quarterly basis. Maybe you need to do it faster. Like there's some ways that you can talk to them about speeding up this reconciliation by you taking it in-house.
And I think another challenge for the attractions that don't already manage their own paid search, Google Ads, their own paid social, the Meta, the Facebook, TikTok platforms, they have to like pay by credit card, kind of $500 at a time. It takes a while to establish credit with these platforms.
Yeah, each one's different. So this can be a little bit of a nightmare if you're on a credit card payment versus an invoice payment. Even with your traditional media, I mean, there's going to be some time to establish credit with that vendor. So this process could take a while. This could take several months, in fact. So, it might be, hey, you're paying TV directly, and everything else is transitioning over the next few months. But get started on it so that kind of as you go in your contract negotiations, your renewals, you'll have everything set. And this could also be a good time to say, like, that's the anticipated date to switch over, our Google Ads account or Facebook accounts, because now you're going to tell the agency, like, hey, we're going to renew with you for 12 more months, but we have to have access to all these platforms to renew. And I tell you what, your agency at that point is going to be like, okay.
So why? It sounds like a big headache. More invoices, clunky credit card system. Why are you taking this effort on?
Well,
and maybe you can talk just on the traditional side and then the digital side.
Well, start with, this episode is about in-housing a media team, right?
Fair enough.
So if I can't pay my media invoices, I can't bring media in-house. So I think that's kind of the real reason behind why we're doing this. But there's a few other things. So one, just building those closer relationships with our reps. So again, if we're thinking about traditional, broadcasts or, our local media reps, they might have a relationship with you already, but at the end of the day, whoever's signing that IO and paying that invoice, like, that's who they're, they want to be the closest to. So it'll just, bring that relationship even, tighter with you and that sales rep. But it's also, there's a lot of things that they might put in front of your agency partner that you never see. And I think, at the end of the day, you might be thinking like, well, I trust my agency partner to vet all of these opportunities and bring me only the really good ideas. But again, if we're talking about bringing it in-house, like, you probably want to see some of these ideas that are out there, or maybe your agency says no to it because there's no budget, but you actually know that you have budget left over from another department that you could bring over to support this idea. So you will start getting, more opportunities put in front of you when you're actually the one paying those invoices.
I like that. And then on the digital side, why would you want to own your own platforms?
You want to own the data. So if you were to make a change with an agency, maybe you don't have a great relationship with that agency and you're looking for a new one, like, what happens when you change agency? You start over in a lot of cases.
Ooh, and that's bad. We know, these platforms rely on machine learning. It takes time for these platforms to kind of auto-optimize by themselves. If you have to start from scratch, you're losing all that historical data, all that machine learning.
Yeah. And I think with a new team coming in, they're going to say, well, we're going to have our own strategy and we're going to change it up anyways. And that's fine, but you're still going to lose the data on what worked, what didn't. Like, you're starting from, zero versus at least being able to say, hey, great idea, new team, but we actually already tested all those things and you can see all that data in the platform itself. So you want to own it. You don't want to lose it, and you don't want to have to fight your agency for it, all the time.
And I'll add this. Not to say that all agencies do this, but there are some bad actors out there where we talk about maybe bearing in extra fees or extra commissions by having these digital platforms live in a black box. They live at the agency. You just get the bill as the attraction for X amount of dollars per month. There's that opportunity for these agencies to maybe not be as transparent as they should be in terms of fees and extra costs.
Yeah. And listen, it's hard work. They should all get paid for it. The problem is some of them don't know how to tell you that they want to charge for it, or they're scared to have that conversation with you. Or maybe you've told them, no, I'm not paying for that. So they figured out a way to get paid for it. But I think, this is a great example of where you're going to just develop them, but you're going to take all of those questions out of the mix by paying all these invoices direct, because you're going to have full trust with your agency, because all you do is pay your agency the actual fees to manage all of this media. You don't, there's no opportunity for them to bear any costs in there. So you can build better trust with that partnership.
I like it. All right. So step one, getting the visitation data in a place that you can see it. Step two, you're owning all of the media invoices. You're paying your own bills. And basically, if you have an agency, the only thing that you're paying them is for their fees.
Right. Yeah.
And what I noticed here is any attraction can do this, whether you're spending $100,000 a year, $5 million a year, whatever your media budget is. These are two steps that any agent or any attraction can go do.
Yeah. And another thing with that too is, so if I'm paying my agency fees, right, versus like I'm paying them a commission, they bill me and then they put 85% towards the media and 15% of standard commission, 15 towards their fees, right? What happens when you pay them that way is now they incorporate all that into their reporting. And so your reporting has this commission on it. Now the agency has more work to add that commission on top of the reports that they're doing. If they're hiding commission, they have even more work to do all this. And when I'm paying that agency based off of a fee, all of a sudden, all that goes away and my reporting is simpler and faster and easier.
And more true.
And more true, right? Because it's the actual money that I'm spending on media versus like, oh, wow, we actually, the cost increase or decrease or the performance increase or decrease because maybe we had an adjustment in our fee or commission structure or something. So all that can be taken out of it as well. And I'm telling you, someone who came from the agency side where we had a blend of these two things, right? Some were fee-based and complete net media, and we reported on net media, and some were commission-based, fully transparent commission, but the commission was then included in reporting. The nightmare of checking everything to ensure that not only was the data right coming on the platform, but the commission was right going into the report. There's not an agency that will tell you that is just easy peasy. I mean, it's just an extra step. And so you're actually removing just this headache from your agency, like the partnership with your agency, and you're speeding things up. It's happier people working on your account because there's less things to worry about when it comes to the reporting.
Got it. So let's recap the benefits here. Number one, I have the flexibility to bring in the best team, whether that's an agency, and I know we're going to get to this, maybe consultants or freelancers. Like I'm going to own the car, whether that's the Google Ads account, whether that's the relationship with the local broadcast outfits. I'm going to own the car and I'm going to get the best driver to come in and drive that car on my behalf, whether that's in-house, whether that's outside.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Number two, I'm going to have full transparency to where my dollars are going. And you kind of talked about adding a commission on from agencies and such, but I'm going to eliminate the idea that agencies can kind of bury fees, be able to sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that nothing shady is going on. And then number three, I've got that report card for performance. And this is where we're talking about bringing in that visitation, marrying better that paid media budget to my visitation and understanding my performance.
Yep, exactly.
You're listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast, conversations on how nonprofit attractions are increasing attendance and sharing their mission through marketing. Your hosts are Ryan Dick and Jenny Williams of Attend Media. Attend Media is a media planning and buying agency specializing in zoos, aquariums, gardens, and museums. For more information, please visit attend.media. Now, back to Ryan and Jenny.
All right, so step number three, what are we doing next?
So now that we've got kind of a lot of the baseline in place for building this team in-house, we've got to hire someone, right? If we're going to build it in-house, we need to hire people to build in-house. So when I think about who I would hire kind of first or what I would do first, it would really be kind of some type of media coordinator, marketing coordinator, an agency we're calling the coordinator. They're handling a lot of the kind of day-to-day management of the buys. And I think this is important because, now that we've brought these invoices in-house, we need someone who can help with reconciliation. Did we move money around? Maybe they're managing our plan some. They're, potentially managing things like, make goods, if those are coming through from like buys that we've got put in place. Traffic, that's a big one, right? If we're changing out creative, we're not relying on our agency to have to change it in every single channel internally. Maybe we can do that. We might still rely on our agency in some channels like digital because of tracking that needs to be put into place. But I want to swap my spot out for the, 3 TV stations that I'm running. Like my coordinator can do this for me now instead of my agency.
Okay. So your first hire internally to be primarily focused on media is going to be what you're calling a media coordinator. I got to pay salary for this. It doesn't sound like this is going to save my department money, but it sounds like it's going to save me time and headache.
Yeah. So you could be kind of just moving that over from like an hourly fee to a salary internally. And it could be that you have someone internally who can take on this work already. It really kind of goes back to the budget and how much you're managing and processing, right? But it's not always I think really kind of with some of those initial hires, you're not necessarily saving money, you're moving money from one place to another, but you're saving yourself headache. With this internal hire, you're able to prioritize their day, whereas an agency, you can't really prioritize their day. So you're kind of, stuck to their turnaround times. I think, a lot of agencies can be great about working faster than those turnaround times, but at the end of the day, like, it's going to be hard maybe for me to say, no, I need it now, right now, today, drop everything. Some agencies might be able to drop everything and do it, but some might say, okay, great, that's a rush fee to do that, right? So maybe
now you're getting nickel and dime.
Right,
there.
right. And I don't think it's a bad thing that they do that. They've got to get paid for that work too. But I think of this as more as this role becomes more of a headache saver than a cost saver, in most cases.
In your perfect world, you're the marketing director. You've got the FTE in place. That person is doing great. Are you giving them some more buying? Like, are they a media buyer? What are they doing in terms of actually executing media plans?
Well, it depends, in this scenario, myself, I come from 15 years of media agency experience, so I can provide some media direction. If I don't have any of that, I have more kind of just marketing as a whole, but maybe not media buying experience, then I think that becomes a little bit harder because who's this junior person going to learn from? If I can't give them the direction and I can't train them, how are they going to learn? But let's say in this scenario, I have the media experience, I have background, maybe you came from a media agency or at some point in your career worked in there. So maybe there are things that this coordinator can start to take on, like maybe managing some of your out-of-home buys, right? So you guys are in the local market and maybe you can provide as the director direction to that buyer or that coordinator. Maybe it's some of the print, maybe you do some local print buys, to help support the PR initiative. So maybe those types of things they can take on versus your agency having to do. And then I think there's even some opportunity probably in some of your digital channels, maybe not managing any search campaigns, but when we think of social, especially if this role is kind of already doing some of your organic posting and content, maybe they're able to do some like boosted posts, or even, run a few paid ads through the platforms, for like a small campaign or a small event that's separate from maybe the bigger initiatives that your agency partners might handle for you. Okay.
So let's say you're at Attraction with a sizable budget. Are you hiring a, dedicated full-time experienced media buyer?
I think what we forget is that a sizable budget doesn't always mean a sizable budget in every single channel. And we want to hire, or we want experts within these channels. I mean, media has become so fragmented. To find someone who's going to be your expert TV buyer and also knows how to manage Facebook campaigns and also is up to speed on TikTok campaigns, like it's just not going to happen.
I think they call that a unicorn.
I've never seen this unicorn.
and you're coming from...
and I'm coming from a space where like there's a lot of people who knew how to do a lot of things, but that's one I've yet to see. So I think, what agencies are great at is being able to put together a team of 4 to 5 individuals who are experts within their platforms to put the best buys and the best campaign management together, for your, initiatives. And I think what happens a lot of times when we look at how an in-house team is built is a lot of generalists are hired. And I don't think, a generalist is always a bad idea, but if you have a team of 4, let's say 3 generalists versus 5 specialists, like I'd argue your 5 specialists are going to be better, but they're going to be so much more expensive. So the way I would look at it is, is there a way maybe, for some of those more kind of day-to-day management roles, like the coordinator that I have as a FTE, but my specialist, I'm now looking at maybe hiring a contractor or a freelancer, because I don't need a TV buyer year round, right? Maybe I need a TV buyer for 2 big campaigns. They put the strategy and the buy together, but now my coordinator that I've hired is actually managing the buy. They're reconciling the invoices. They're approving, or maybe I'm approving because of my background, make goods, or maybe I'm buying just a bucket of hours from that freelancer or contractor to be able to handle, some of that throughout the year or throughout that campaign. So I think there's, if I'm willing to hire 4 or 5 FTEs, why would I not be willing to manage, 4 or 5 freelancers or contractors?
And I think for some of our audience, this might sound a little different or odd or unconventional. But if we think about the recruitment challenges of hiring another FTE,
right?
The retention challenges, we've got somebody in-house, they know our attraction, they believe our mission, they share our values, they live in our market, they come into work every day. And then 18 months later, they leave for better pay or for whatever reason. Now we got to start all over.
Right.
So I like what you said. If I'm willing to hire 3, 4, 5 FTEs to be in my marketing department, we'll just shift that mentality to hiring 3, 4, 5 specialists, contractors, freelancers.
Right. And remember, your budgets aren't just unlimited, right? So you probably don't have the budget to go in and hire these really expensive experts in these channels. And I think that's where it's like you don't need them full time. So you can hire the expert on a part-time basis, not like part-time employee, but from a freelance standpoint. And they might be with you for 5, 10, 15 years because they're able to take on other jobs that keep them learning and growing and making more money versus, a job that might be capped in an industry where they can't maybe, grow quite as much as they want to grow. So I think there's other challenges that we have as like nonprofit attractions to be able to attract this type of talent. And one of those is also, this idea that we've got to hire local. When we go to a freelancer or a contract, we probably don't have quite as many kind of geographical restrictions on where we can hire from.
Talk to me about the big picture stuff. I'm talking strategic planning, putting together your annual media strategy, your buy, your plan. How are you going to handle that?
So I think this can be, maybe it's somewhat of a hybrid. I think kind of going into it, let's just say year one, I'd want a partner to come in, a consultant, a strategist to come in who has the research tools that I probably can't buy internally at the agency side, right? So when we talk about media research tools, I mean, it could be anything from like an MRI at our local Scarborough Media, which are research tools that, based off of your target audience, tell you which media channels they're spending their time with.
That sounds expensive.
Very expensive. So for the cost of buying those tools alone, I could really just pay an agency to use those tools and put my entire media strategy together versus, great, now I just have the tools and I still have to go do the strategy myself. But with that, I would say make sure you're hiring an agency or a consultant who has these tools, right? So there's not just going off of gut to build a media strategy. But it could be other tools as well too, right? So maybe it's some type of visitation data that the agency has access to that you haven't been able to buy. Placer AI is a big one now that I know a lot of attractions are working with. So maybe that agency has it, so you don't have to go out and buy it yourself. Or maybe, I would be looking at the data that I need that can influence a lot of other decisions versus media only in-house, and then looking at partnering with, an agency or consultant who has maybe some of those really niche research tools that are just for media that can help enhance my strategy or plan overall.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I'm overseeing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in, sometimes government funded donation money, ticket revenue, I'm a steward of that budget. And if I had $3 million in my retirement account, I'm going in for my annual financial checkup to say, hey, am I going down the right path? Am I too conservative here? Am I too exposed over here? If you're going to do that for your own personal finances, you have to do that for the attractions finances for that budget.
Right. It's like the gut check. And maybe you don't do it every year. Maybe it's every other year. And again, a lot of this has to depends upon how much experience you actually have in media.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. And you keep on saying how fast media is moving. I'm thinking if I'm looking for some outside help, I want some fresh ideas.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest complaints that clients can have of agencies is like, I don't get new ideas. And at the end of the day, I think what we want to do is we want to set it up to where internally we're handling the mundane, basic, boring tasks. And then externally, we've got the fresh thinking and new ideas coming from agency partners, consultants, people who are outside of our world and experts at these channels that are really hard to be experts at, to bring the fresh thinking to the table.
All right. So let's recap this. Step 1.
Get my hands on that visitation data and get it reported daily, weekly. I see it and I share it with my team.
So for some attractions, that's going to take about an hour. For some attractions, that's going to take about a year.
Yeah. Just depends on where you're at. Yep.
And then step 2?
Step 2 is owning no longer using an agency as a bank. I'm paying my media invoices, signing and managing and responsible for all of my insertion orders.
And we want to do that in order to build the best team, to have somebody drive the car, to kind of kill that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to transition away from an agency, you can't do that until you own the bills, right?
It has to be step one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then step 3, you're bringing in a media coordinator if the budgets allow it.
Bring in the day-to-day stuff, the things that we could turn around faster, trafficking, insertion orders, management, reconciliation, all that day-to-day stuff.
But you're always looking for some outside help, some outside thinking on that strategic plan.
Correct. The strategic plan and the strategic buying within platforms.
And to tie it all together, you're using your visitation data as your report card. Is what we're doing, is how we're spending our money, is our team moving the needle, so to speak, in terms of visitation.
Yep, exactly.
Jenny, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Attractions Podcast. If you have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on the show, please visit our website at marketingattractionspodcast.com.